Welcome to the DRS Train podcast. This service is Andretti F1 Serious Business. I'm your driver, Peter Brook, and your conductors today are Nav F1 and returning guests DanNoSkill and LawVS. Welcome, gentlemen.
Hello.
Hi, Peter.
Hey, Peter. Let's have a look at this interesting drama.
So, one of the biggest talking points in modern F1 at the moment is the prospect of Andretti joining the grid because clearly a very popular entry because it's a big name to be run by Michael Andretti, son of Mario. They've got a lot of backing, but they're meeting a lot of resistance from the big teams, which is interesting, really, because we've had teams in the past, such as in 2010, we had another American team, USF1, who got in rather easier, even though their own car never really got past the drawing board before they collapsed. And then alongside them was Lotus Virgin and HRT, who did last, but not for very long. So it is just a bit puzzling to me, really, that this is clearly a team that looks set up to do well and is getting a lot of support, but F1 themselves, Liberty Media, they just don't seem to be interested in having them on the grid.
Exactly, especially as in 2010, the reason why all those new teams wanted to come in the sport were because of the new budget cap that never really worked. And it was always going to be projects that would be run on a very, very tight budget and would be nearly entirely reliant on sponsors. They would be getting paid drivers. So from the onset in 2009, when those requests got in, there were eyebrows raised, you know. Whereas in this case with Andretti, it's a big name with big backing, big drivers who are predicted to join. They know what they're doing, an incredibly big, just major name in motorsports. And it's not a secret to anyone that we need an 11th team. It's not a taboo. It's not an underrated opinion. Everyone wants an 11th team, especially when you get so much attention directed towards Formula 2, Formula 3, even Formula Freca, or whatever. You need more teams. You can't have so many drivers just waiting in a backlog of Nico Hülkenberg, Kevin Magnussen, and Lance Stroll with his lifetime contract. So it's just weird, and we can only hope that it goes better than all those lost efforts from 2009.
Yeah, it was just unfortunate with those three teams that they all seemed to have at least some kind of coherent campaign, and the likes of Lotus and Ciaron, they did end up being relatively, they made progress, but they were all coming into Formula One on the promise of potentially a $40 million cost cap. But then, of course, we had all of the angry big teams going $40 million. That's not even enough to pay the catering staff. And then they all kick off, and then you get once again, them going, we're going to have our own series, and then obviously they back down. But it was too late for all of these three teams to go, oh, we got this. What do we do with it? We can't just back now. We got investors; they'll be angry. So they had to do something. And the fact is, though, we got all three teams, even Hispania, getting on and having a car that moved. That is that's an achievement in of itself. The fact they were able to even do it in a sport where there were teams out there spending 10 times as much to be like 5 seconds or that faster.
The trouble's always been as well, hasn't it? Is trying to capture that F1, that US F1 audience too. And obviously with US F1 not really working, and then the FIA looking to push in those new teams, and then obviously photo and all of that sort of stuff happening around 2009 and empty threats here and there. I think there's always been this push for an American F1 team, possibly with American drivers, to capture that American audience. And then I'm sure we'll touch on this later, but now we might have that opportunity and we're not taking it.
Yeah, I'll let Peter talk more about USF1, which was such a weird attempt because they started as this thing that wanted to be so American, and then a month into negotiations, oh, we want Jose Maria Lopez, the Argentinian driver, as our main guy, and then I think James Rossiter was meant to be the other one, and if they didn't get Rossiter, they would have gotten Kazuki Nakajima. So yeah, very American of them.
Yeah, they looked at Connor Daly came up as a candidate, and even Danica Patrick, and I think Joseph Newgarden. They were looking at some Americans, but in the end, James Rossiter, I think they almost signed, but then he pulled out at the last minute. But Lopez did sign with them. But for them, because they had a factory, they built the carbon fiber tub of their car, and they had some staff. But I think maybe their funds were just even shorter than the others, because Lotus weren't one of the three teams that were originally chosen, but they got in because BMW withdrew from F1, and that created a vacancy. But then they came back as Sauber, so then Lotus just got to stay. But they had quite a lot of money from backing like Proton and that all the Malaysian governments and everything. So they had more money. And then Manor got bought out by Virgin, so that was a lot of money from Richard Branson. HRT ended up selling. The team got sold to one of their shareholders, Jose Ramon Carabante, and got renamed from Campos Grand Prix to HRT. But yeah, as was mentioned before, on a budget of 40 million, which is what Virgin and HRT had, they had a car that moved and it worked, and it could, most of the time, it could finish races. And they were slow, but they're definitely not the slowest things we've ever seen. But you can understand the bigger teams not wanting to have such a limited budget, because I think Red Bull in 2010, their budget was 200 million, because it would, as well as massively limiting the salaries that you could give your driver, because at the time the others were all dependent on pay drivers. It just limits innovation and development. There's only so much you can do with 40 million. And so we would have had a field of just not very good cars running around.
Yeah, so a question to Law, let's say. Do you think that those performances from those backmarkers have put off big teams agreeing for newer, maybe lesser known entries into Formula One? And do you think that's a big part of why Andretti is being boycotted, or do you think it's just the top teams being like, oh no, we want to keep the money for ourselves, the top 10 teams?
Well, I don't think it's that. I don't think it's to do with that, because I think the big teams were fully aware about what was going on. Because, yeah, Peter, I was watching your video about HRT and about how, in exchange for not doing the budget cap, the big teams were offering technical support in some shape or form. Is that right?
Yeah, pretty much. It was only subtle things. I mean, in the case of HRT from 2011, they got Williams' gearboxes. And also 2011, they were using Cosworth engines, which Williams were also using. It was only kind of small things like that. It wasn't anything particularly helpful in the end.
All right, it was something, but as in it was a token gesture. Whereas you feel like, they were sold a pup, they were good sports, they carried on, they saw it through. So I don't think that there would have been any kind of negative light towards those three teams. And then you get Haas coming in 2016, and I don't remember there being any stink. In fact, they were actually going, this is great, an American team, this is fantastic, brilliant. And then, I think, as we've seen in the next slide, with the Stefan Grand Prix, the latest attempt makes you go, okay, there has to be some kind of due process and stuff like that. But I wouldn't say those three teams, Nav, that, they didn't sour things going on. I think it's for the fact that back in the 2010s, F1 was relatively small in comparison to where it is now in terms of global outreach. Yeah, just in terms of in the late Bernie Ecclestone era. But it's just obviously, it was like, it's not really working out. We offered places for new teams. They've sort of bit the dust. So, oh well.
Yeah, I mean, there were kind of tenuous links that Haas have to US F1, because I think Gene Haas was actually contacted by Peter Windsor and asked if he wanted some kind of senior involvement in that team. And he said no, because obviously at the time he had plans to make his own team. With Haas, I think maybe a different, because they had been preparing for a whole 2 years before joining, and they had a lot of money, just generous backing, and also the Haas Automation was a huge company, and they had the Windshear wind tunnel and all of that. But even so, we've seen that Haas are basically superfluous at this point. They just don't offer much. There's not much about them that reads as American. Their results have been pretty diabolical, and they're mostly known for all these like scandals involving sponsors, and for their now fired team principal making a lot of meme material for Drive to Survive. But this, there's too Andretti. There's too much resistance, particularly when teams say, "Oh, it's because of money." It's like, well, Liberty Media just got valued at like, what was it, $17 billion or something. So I don't think they're short of funds.
Yeah, it was like $18.22 billion. It's the biggest sporting empire in the entire planet. And I found it really this is something that I feel like Michael Andretti has been playing the court of public opinion like a maestro's fiddle, as it were. As in, you get that piece talking about Liberty Media being the most profitable and biggest asset-rich sporting empire on Earth, and then a few days later, boom! There's Andretti coming in with all of the stuff that they've been doing. And when you read this article from The Athletic, you just go, oh my goodness. They're actually doing things logical. They've paid attention to what people have told them. And then the following day, which is yesterday as of recording, you get Otmar Safnauer's piece. And you just feel like there's a lot of stuff here, which is... that's the thing. Whenever you hear about new teams coming in, there's naturally a lot of skepticism from the public. They go like, okay. But then you get this, all the stuff we're hearing from Andretti, I'm going like, I like what I hear. This sounds good.
Yeah, it's such a contrast to how Haas has been over the last few years, isn't it? Because Haas joined with that excitement of there's suddenly a growing American audience in F1 because of Drive to Survive. And Haas have their best season ever in 2018, which coincides with the release of it. And then from there, things just never got better. We find out all these things about, it becomes more to light that they're buying most of the parts off Ferrari and they're outsourcing the chassis building to Dallara. So they're not really that involved with the car. It seems that they fundamentally actually lack the understanding to really push it forward that much throughout the season. And then all this hype around them, especially over the last season, reading comments and stuff, people just seem to no longer support them. Even American fans go, we don't even view Haas as our team anymore because they had that whole Russian livery controversy. Now you're getting this American team with heritage in F1 through, Mario Andretti, and they're willing to put together a model for the wind tunnel. They're claiming that parts are getting ready for an F1 car. They want to bring in their own engine manufacturer, which is, something huge for F1 because that's what they've been trying to push for a long time now rather than just customer teams. And yet it's been blocked out of pure greed from the sport arguably being in its most stable financial state ever. So it just seems quite hypocritical.
What's really telling is that when General Motors went, hey, from 2028, we are going to be an official power unit supplier for Formula One. No mention on F1.com. None at all. Whereas when Audi became a power unit supplier for 2026, big song and dance. They even made a car with the Audi livery on it. And you feel like, what does that tell you? What does that tell you? General Motors mean business. And coupled to what I said earlier, as well as Cadillac's performance at the Daytona 24 Hours, yes, of course, this is sports cars, this is different to Formula One, but it's showing that Cadillac do know what they're talking about when it comes to high-performance motorsport. They're serious. Like, all of these people are serious, and it just seems like there's an old adage, like, even the stoniest of stone walls one day fall over. And that's the stonewalling we're hearing from Formula One management. It can only go on for so long before it just completely erodes away and there's no argument to stand on. There's actually Christian Horner did an interview for, I think, the Racer website where he's going like, look, come on. Yeah, Andretti, General Motors, phenomenal brands. They'd be fantastic for Formula One. But the question is, though, who's going to pay for it? And then he goes on to justify saying, our teams have been through thick and thin. We're not quite too sure whether the lower teams would be able to sustain themselves as the bottom falls out of Formula One's market. So it's like, well, yeah, the goings are good now, but if things were to change, the smaller teams may not come out so easily. So it's coming back to money, and there are just so many tenuous things, and you just feel like all of the stuff that Andretti has been having to go up against, they're able to counter, and they have an answer for everything.
I wonder, and that's personal, I haven't really read on it. It's just me having a little feeling. Do you think there's some fear going on that an American team could actually be successful? So it went from a laughing stock, haha, yeah, try whatever you want, to, oh, it's General Motors. They are doing well in the US as always, but also they're doing well at Le Mans now. They weren't that bad last year at Le Mans, and I think it's only going to go up. And they might actually have a proper bid here. And the sport that has been dominated by British or Western European teams could be facing their biggest challenge yet by Andretti if it was to go well. Because we keep talking about Andretti as this new team who will be a backmarker and will be finding their feet, which they will. But if it goes well, I think it's their best shot at something actually competitive.
I mean, if they are doing that, they're being a bit of a tease by stuffing the calendar full of American races. Since we've got 3, and we're looking at a possible 4th with Chicago, and there's an obvious interest to keep American interest in investment. And I mean, Logan Sargent is probably one of the least American drivers we've had because he's done virtually none of his racing career in the States. But that's just how. That's how it kind of works. You do have to race in Europe if you're going to get to Formula One eventually. So that's whereas Pietro Fittipaldi, who is probably the closest thing that Haas have ever had to an American driver, he was born in the States. He did a lot of racing in the States. He at least did race there, even if they kept him on for 5 years as a test driver and seemed to have no interest in giving him a race seat, other than when Grosjean was nearly killed. But again, why would that be a problem if they're going to be competitive? And again, especially if they're going to hone in on the American image, which it looks like they're going to do with the history and the legacy and Cadillac engines. And if they're going to get some American drivers in, I don't see what the problem is, really.
Well, what's incredibly telling is the progress that they have made. And according to their progress reports, they seem like they're going to have a rolling chassis ready to go by the summer. And that's the same stage that Manor got to with their 2017 car before they shut down everything. As in, we've seen pictures of this scale model, and you look at it and it goes, that looks really well developed. This looks potentially that it could have been not getting podiums or wins or anything like that, no. But they would at least have been able to get more points. And Manor was showing progress and potential. And you just feel like, what could have happened if Mercedes maybe put in a little bit more money into it, really invest it into like making it their Toro Rosso, or just providing some more insight? And also that team would have had a little bit more insight into that Mercedes power unit what they got in 2016. They would have had a little bit more time with it, build the car around it. And then as with Ocon being plonked there, thanks to, to get some knowledge about Formula One by Toto, since he was the manager, you feel like, well, Ocon could have been a team leader at Manor, and then he might have not had that 2019 blip where he wasn't in F1.
Yeah, the thing with Manor, and I'm quite passionate about Manor because of Pascal Wehrlein, who I've always been a big fan of for a lot of reasons. It could have really been Mercedes' Toro Rosso, especially, yeah, as you said, 2017, they were going to be good. They were going to be proper lower midfield to, when you were lower midfield at that point, that meant you would finish 8th or 9th somewhere for a run of 3 or 4 races. And both Ocon and Wehrlein, their careers would have been so different. So obviously, Ocon is the relatable driver for most fans because he's still in the sport and he's doing quite well. Wehrlein, I always say he had such a different career path just because of that. And let's not forget, Manor folded because Felipe Nasser scored 2 points in Brazil. It's insane to think about. They were meant to survive going into 2017. Then Nasser gets a 9th place in Brazil in this race where there was a lot of rain. Verstappen proved to everyone that he was extremely talented with that overtake round the outside of Rosberg at turn 3. So yeah, Felipe Nasser kind of he made Manor fold. And all I'm hoping is that if Andretti does reach F1, it does not reach that point where they're struggling to survive. I don't think it would reach that point, but just incredible to think how Mana could have changed everything in terms of the drivers, but just in terms of opportunities for junior drivers. We just really, really need 22 drivers on the grid at the moment.
Well, I actually just got a notification on my phone that this is breaking news, by the way, that F1 has rejected Andretti's bid to join the grid in 25 or 26. They just apparently, this is from Chris Medland F1, that they have straight up rejected it, and they have said that, a quote, they would look differently on an application for 2028 alongside General Motors' planned power unit entry. So again, this is literally breaking news right now from Chris Medland, a reputable journalist in Formula One.
Well, if that's
See,
true,
again, that just proves it's dire for them. That's all I want to say.
if that's true, it's a bit of a shambles, really, because we have all these issues that have been prevalent over the last sort of few years where we've only had 10 teams on the grid, that no drivers are coming through. Because at the moment in F1, it seems that drivers are leaving teams less than ever, and people are staying for much longer stints at one team. I think ever since the Schumacher era in Ferrari, that's been the case. And now we're struggling to get any of the F2 champions to step up into F1, which was the whole idea of sort of refining the GP2 and F2 and all of that, and refining it and streamlining it more to F1. And now that's pretty much just out the window because there's not enough seats in Formula One to give all these rookies a chance. They're staying for so long. An 11th team would at least provide 2 extra grid slots so people aren't getting held up, like Nav said earlier in the episode, by your Nico Hulkenbergs, your Lance Strolls, who have had their opportunity and not really made anything of it. It's just a complete shambles from F1 because we should be seeing more drivers and a more competitive grid. And the more teams there are, the more chances there are for things to happen and controversies to come around and new race winners to appear. So it's really just outrageous.
Well, there's actually more to this in that. So this is what Chris Medland says, is that after an assessment period, F1 says an 11th team alone doesn't add value. It needs to be competitive. Also, this is the quote, while the Andretti name carries some recognition for F1 fans, our research indicates that F1 would bring value to the Andretti brand rather than the other way around. So basically, they're just saying, oh, they're just a bunch of moochers. They get more out of us than we would of them. So it's like, are you kidding me? Are you absolutely kidding me?
Going back to Peter's point, they have 3 races in Formula One now, including this Miami Grand Prix, which is just redundant now. It's after 2 years, it's already redundant because they're not what Las Vegas wants to be, and they're not the American Monaco they think it is, and no one likes it. So they have 3 races now, and then they're saying that an American team that's properly American would not be helping the sport. The viewership is going down. I don't know what numbers they're using, but like even us, I think us as proper fans, in 2023 there was just less interest to watch the last 2 races because you had 22 races, and honestly by the end of the season it just became a bit druggy. At least for me it did, and I think I watched every F1 race between I think 2010 and 2021 or 2022, and just like it became so long the end of the season. And well, in 2024 you're going to have even more races, and you would think, oh, one way to keep people entertained would be to have another team, another narrative, another reason to watch it. So I cannot understand how they say that their research indicates that F1 would bring value to Andretti rather than the other way around. There is more going on there. It seems like there is some kind of fight going on between Andretti and Formula One, because as you said, the fact they didn't even they didn't even publish it on their website, the power unit thing. There is some beef there. That's all I'm going to say.
Yeah, I do get the feeling that I think now this is gonna escalate now to the Andretti going with the FIA probably to court. Probably because it's like, the FIA has backed us for an entry into the sport from such a date. and we are technically allowed the green light. Why is this happening? So it's like the administrators of the sport have said okay, but now Andretti has been told no by the commercial side rather than the people who run the sport itself. So this is going to end up in a court, I reckon.
I mean,
Go on, you go.
I mean, if they think that that they're bringing more value to Andretti than the other way around, what do they think's happening with Haas? Because Haas would barely exist because they had some half-assed NASCAR team, and then otherwise they manufacture like parts for like factory robots or whatever it is. Like they're only there because they're not a name that goes back in the eons of motorsport or whatever. But this is, with that being run by the son of an ex-champion who has all these other titles in other American series. Like it's like it just feels like something different. It's like that the NASCAR entry, the Garage 54 entry in Le Mans. It's got that sort of feel. It's just going to come in and kind of stir the pot and make things different in a way that's good. But people like Toto are pretending that they're worried about money, and it's like, well, that money is never been a problem. It's just about you don't want someone that might be good and actually beat you.
I completely agree with Peter, especially what you're saying about Haas. I think it's crazy to me because having read a lot of comments of American fans, they go, I wish we had someone to properly root for. They go, well, Logan Sargent has had he had a pretty rubbish season at the back. So as much as you can root for him, it's not like he's going to be challenging even near the midfield. You've got Haas, who struggled to get their car to move forward in the races. They just would drop back with tire issues. And then now you have a team that's willing to come in and be an American team. How can that be detracting value from Formula One? You're going to keep the famously short attention span American audience interested in a brand new team representing their country that has the chance to do better than Haas. It's just like, I don't see the logic in it at all. And like I think Laura and Peter touched on, there's got to be something more to it.
I'm just looking at the live reactions, right? That this is live on Twitter. So Visa Cash App Red Bull is allowed to, Racing Bull is allowed to be here. Take F1 Kick is allowed to be here. No idea how Visa Cash App and Haas bring value to the sport, which Andretti doesn't. All the big F1 names on Twitter are just saying, embarrassing, what a joke, ridiculo. It's incredible. Like I've not seen such instant chaos after an announcement like this. Casual, who's a common guest on this podcast, just said F1 has lost touch with its fans, honestly, and it's the top comment on Formula Race's tweet. Yeah, I don't know how they're seeing this reaction when not a single fan is backing this, and all the replies are flowing in extremely quickly. In the first 5 minutes, there are so many tweets about this. And they still just think, oh, it wouldn't bring value. You are seeing it live that people are outraged.
Oh, absolutely. This is something that I would not be surprised that you're going to get Michael Andretti coming out swinging from this, and he's going to be like, I've put all this money through, and we will definitely see this going to the court. And considering who's the governing body of here of Formula One? Oh, it's the guys that gave him the green light to compete. Oh, who's Michael Andretti's best friend right now? Ben Sulayem, who is the president of the FIA. Oh dear. I think this is going to end up messy. This will be the thing. This team entry, I wouldn't be surprised if this ends up being the death knell of both men's careers, Dominicali and Sulayem. I definitely think that this is something that's going to end up with both of them, or at least one of them, losing their jobs. Because, I don't know, Sulayem probably might end up just dying on that hill. It's just something that I feel like they surely there has to be something else going on here. they probably have seen that article and all of the stuff, and they're probably also aware, according to the athletics thing, that all of these teams are losing personnel, probably junior level personnel, to this outfit. And they're going like, oh god, we're getting a brain drain and we didn't even notice it. Oh god. Because there is a Silverstone satellite base for Andretti. They're building that car, they're doing all that stuff, and now they're just going, oh god, we need to panic. And then they go, Stefano, help! And then Stefano, in an Italian accent, says, I got you. And then just basically just says, no, you're not coming in.
I mean, I said it in my my manifesto video last year that if I ever became, FIA president / dictator, the first thing I'd do would be to fire Domenicali, and then obviously completely revise all the technical things and the calendar and that sort of thing. But we're looking at. I mean, okay, if we look at Haas, it's like how American are they? They've got an American license. Their official base is in the States, although they hardly ever use it. And I understand that for practicality reasons, everybody needs to have one in Europe. And I'm sure that'd be the same with Andretti. But then, their first team principal was Italian. Their new one is Japanese. The closest thing you've had to an American driver properly would be Santino Ferrucci, who was just a development driver, and then he got fired because he started driving around with a phone in the cockpit or whatever he was doing. Most of their, the car is built by Ferrari and the engine and Dallara and, half the team are British. This is not an American team. But this is a team which could be run by Americans, invested by Americans. They could get American drivers. I mean, I don't think they'd get Logan Sargent, but they could probably snatch some people from IndyCar. So I could see they might try it with. I know that like Colton Herta and Pato O'Ward are McLaren, and Pato seems to think he can get an F1 seat with McLaren, but that's a no-go. But he's Mexican. That's someone that could do it. Joseph Newgarden. Alexander Rossi has F1 experience. He could maybe come back if he wants a second go at F1. They have a chance to do this properly, and America's like, oh no, we'll have one race per state, but we'll never have an American team.
I'm being this guy on those football shows whose only job is to look at tweets and just tell people the current reaction. Tom Bellingham from P1 podcast. If Andretti had registered themselves as DHL, PayPal, Andretti, fuck yeah, America, let's go, then maybe F1 would have taken them more seriously. And it's not even that far-fetched. It seems like Andretti F1 team is too boring to them. They're saying that it does not add value. I feel like the value for FOM is measured in terms of how impressive the name is. And I don't know if they think newer fans might not know Andretti, but they do, and they are all longing for an 11th team.
We've seen like lots of recently things like this happening with F1. There's the massive push in street circuits. There's these daft names that are just all brand and no actual team. And now we've got the rejection of a team pretty much unanimously by every F1 fan wanting to be in F1. How close do you think we are to an actual some sort of boycott towards F1 or a huge decline in viewership where, you know what they say about any business. If you want to make an impact, hit them where it hurts, and it hurts in the wallet. Do you guys at all think there could be some sort of boycott by the fans of going, you know what, we're just fed up of all these changes against our best interests?
Oh, perhaps. But the question is, though, is that how would... The thing is that a lot of these people who have bought tickets to these events, they're not cheap. They're hundreds and hundreds of dollars. And do you really want to throw that money away just for that? And you feel like it's a really tight balancing act. But again, going back to that thing earlier last year, they were talking about how there were all of those media statistics talking about the reach of Formula One had reduced by about like 2/3 or something like in comparison to 2021. And then F1 was like, that's not true. We have our own data. Do you now? Interesting. Is it better? Oh, look at that. It's better. So it's like, but you just feel like there's just something wrong here. There's something that something's got to snap. Something has definitely got to snap here.
It does make me think about the prospect of kind of breakaway series again. I mean, with this, obviously, the last time we got that going back to 2010 was that it was the threat of all the other teams making their own breakaway series that made them get rid of that cost cap. But particularly because we're just spamming the calendar with so many races in different places and because there's like a lack of seats available, that they would think, oh, if we have regional series that other teams can be in, that might work. So you could make like a mini, like a Formula One Middle Eastern Championship that has like 5 races in, Qatar, Jeddah, blah blah blah, or even an American one, like a Pan-American one, because they're desperate to have all these races in the States now, and then throw in Canada, Mexico. Maybe they could do that, and that's somewhere where teams like this would get a way in if they're not going to be so stingy about the rules. Because at the moment it's becoming Formula One has always been elitist, but now there's no inflow or outflow in terms of drivers or teams. We've gone into this season with an unchanged lineup from every team. A couple of teams have changed their names, but they're all the same teams. And we've had the last few Formula 2 champions, like they win the title and their reward is absolutely nothing. And you're just thinking, like, where is the incentive for people to try and go to this when anyone, it seems like Formula E, IndyCar, teams and drivers come in and out constantly?
You just feel like something needs to change here. But the thing is, though, this is one of the symptoms of the cost cap, because budgets are stretched so thin. You can't just have a rookie make a mistake and crash. Williams have proven to be this, but based on the Destructors Championship, which is an estimated damage sum, it's estimated, that's important to say, that Williams had a repair bill of roughly about $7 million. And $7 million for Williams is a lot. So you just get the feeling like there needs to be, I don't know what's going on with this cost cap, but it is a downside that things have become risk averse. And yeah, it just seems incredibly interesting here.
What I cannot bear are these words that Andretti does not bring value. I keep looking at it again because firstly, it clearly does, and secondly, let's say it wasn't Andretti and it was. I'm trying to think of a random American team. Anyway, yeah, if it was just some random team, the value is added by, the value would still go up just with the 11th entry. And even if it was only there to be a publicity stunt, then what the hell is Visa Cash Up about? It makes no sense. All of this has just made F1 and FOM or whatever, well, F1 basically, lose so much integrity.
Maybe it's the name. Maybe they just need to rename themselves, like, I don't know, Walmart, Taco Bell, McDonald's F1 team, and just name themselves after.
Yeah, that's what Tom said.
Yeah.
DHL, PayPal, America, Make America Great Again, Donald Trump F1 team.
Well, all of this just goes against completely the comments that I mentioned from Christian Horner, like earlier in 2023, saying, "Oh, Andretti are a phenomenal brand. They would really bring value to the." No, this is complete bull. That is just some kind of half-hearted thing, as in, like, look at us, we're Formula One. We control the string. We're the puppet masters here. We can say who can race and who cannot. And we don't care. This is just yet another chapter in the battle against the FIA and Formula One management. And I said it in my video, which I actually just published, and now it's sort of now a bit for debate, but you know what Formula One management is becoming? They are becoming the person that they hated, they railed against for years. They have become Bernie. All about themselves, about money, trying to get money for themselves. And they railed against him for so long, and now they have become him. I've just got to bring up the Dark Knight and say, do you die, hero? Or live long enough to see yourself become the villain?
I could be persuaded by having Vettel come in as head of FOM or maybe even FIA president. Because again, race without trace, we'd get out of this kind of rut we're stuck in about everyone saying, oh, well, we can't have this, we can't do this because, all car manufacturers are making hybrids now. It's like, I don't care. Let's just make some V10s that have got sustainable fuels and let the cars scream again. And he'd be right behind that. And that maybe that has implications. They're saying, oh, they can join again in 28 when they've got these Cadillac engines or whatever it is. But that's a whole rut. But I see that the casual F1 fan has just joined us as well. So obviously we're talking about this tweet from Chris Medland, and everyone's discussing now that the they've once again rejected Andretti's entry for next year. So what's your take on all of this?
Wow. Actually, I just got the mail from someone who's working for me in Sportskeeda, and it has the entire detail. F1 apparently sent a 16 point something email with the entire detail of why Andretti's application is being rejected apparently. So first of all, hi guys. Hi Lawrence. I've seen your content as well.
And
Dan
nice
as
to
well.
meet you.
Yeah. Hi.
Hiya.
Hope you. How are you guys, by the way?
Well, we're stewing over this in particular.
Yeah.
Mm.
Oh God.
We started with a random Andretti episode on just, how we think it will go, and then the news just broke out during the episode. So it's very much a live reaction.
How how infuriated are you guys? Because
just-
honestly, I'm a bit pissed. I half expected it. I half expected it because look, the 10 teams on the grid, they have too much power. And so the decision does not surprise me. But again, when I go through, I don't know if there is a way I can share with you guys this list that they've shared. Apparently, there was a review process that had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 points, which included the likely competitiveness. Look, I won't bore you guys with the entire detail. So what F1 is basically saying is, Andretti has proposed that in 2025 it will build a car. In 2026 there will be an entirely new regulations. So in the next 2 years, Andretti is going to build two different cars. Now, one of the stipulation that F1 wants is that, well, it wants a team to come in and contribute straight away. So it should be competitive. Now, what they are theorizing is that Andretti cannot be competitive this way. That is their basis, roughly. And on the basis of that, they've rejected the application. And what they are saying is that if there is a case of Cadillac, General Motors, and Andretti joining together as a constructor, full-fledged constructor in 2028, maybe in that scenario they would be happy with, they would be finally happy to have them on board, which is honestly rubbish, but that's where we stand at this moment. Oh God.
I
Yeah.
could see maybe the case for maybe postponing it to 2026, but I don't see a reason past then because that's when the regs change. So they'll have to build like a completely new car. So if they get a 2026 car, regs car ready and they entered, they'll have 2 years as a customer team to somebody to kind of find their footing. Because no matter what, when you enter F1, you're never going to get everything right because you need experience in not just F1, but any sport and any expert field that you're going into. So giving them 2 years experience without with just a different engine manufacturer to kind of get them settled in, and then bring in General Motors and hopefully build maybe some more competitive engines. We know 2026 will be reasonably engine heavy on the regs wise. So I don't see the issue in letting them wait till 26 and bring them in 2028 and having them come in with a new power unit. Just seems that now they've got to get used to not only building and racing in F1 and all of that side of stuff, but also maintaining an engine and doing everything themselves. So it's two things to learn at once. I don't see how that would make them more competitive.
I think this does seem like a power play to me because of that article that dropped in The Athletic showing how much progress they've made. Because as we've shown with the Manor thing, if they got a rolling chassis potentially ready for the summer, then that's most of the development of the 2025 product already done. There'd be just a case of fettling and stuff like that. So you just get the feeling that maybe they might be too competitive and they might rock the boat. But what they want, ideally, they would want Andretti to come in like Haas did, not make waves, but get some points. Get a point a minute again. Maybe P8 or something like that. bottom end of the midfield, just to show that, oh, okay, they're not like 5-6 seconds behind everybody. They're in the mix for the occasional point, and then afterwards they can go from there. But the fact is, though, that they're just putting in all this money. This isn't going to deter Michael Andretti whatsoever. This is not going to make. They're expecting him to go like, good try, Michael. Maybe in a few years' time, but he's going, no, we're not doing this. I've got all of this, resources here. We're going to set. This isn't over. We're not done here. So, this is just something to really consider here.
I think the main issue here is that what we are trying to do here is we're trying to find logic in something that is done in bad faith. That is
Oh
the
yeah, of course it
entire
is.
right.
Absolutely.
At the at the end of the day, we are trying to reason something that is actually not there. It's an entirely a scenario where there are 10 teams on the grid. What Liberty is doing an entirely different approach as compared to what Bernie had, where Bernie was more F1. He focused more on the Formula One part of the things rather than the teams. Liberty has been it has been very conscious in terms of giving complete focus and complete, you can say, a more emphasis on making the whole thing a franchisee business. That is something that NFL and every other the major leagues, that's how they work. So it's trying to build on that basis. But what it is doing is it is making it a bit of an exclusive club. That's not a good thing.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is just going to fall back to the FIA, and then we're going to probably get a statement from Mr. Suliam coming out saying, we can't understand this. We said, based on our own rules that we created, that Andretti is good to go. It passes all of the checks and balances and how we think they could be competitive. And they would know because the FIA set the rules and they set the technical guidelines. And you just feel like they know exactly what Andretti can do. And from what we have seen in Andretti's showcase on the Athletic magazine or the online publication, there is just like, they have it, and they've shown the FIA, look, this is what we've been able to produce already. So you're just like, there's something going on here. This is not over.
I'm gonna do something that they do in the Spanish football show Chiringuito, where they ask every panelist their answer consecutively to a certain question. So Peter, Dan, Law, and Casual in order. Do you think that Andretti will eventually make it to F1, or do you think that it's never going to happen and it's going to be a Stefan GP case? Which is mad to compare them, by the way, because Stefan GP was a joke and Andretti is proper. But yeah, what do you guys think?
I think eventually they will, but they'll be so watered down as to just be utterly meaningless. Like they'll have lost any of their identity as an American team, and they'll be forced to become a customer team to one of the bigger ones, and all of that, and they'll just become just another Haas or Alfa Romeo that doesn't like stand for anything and have anything kind of unique about it.
I would hope they do join. I think the like optimist in me goes, yeah, they're gonna join and they'll have an engine supplier, and they might even like stir the pot a little bit. But if Liberty Media is genuinely against that, unless the FIA is able to take the reins and, like Law suggests, it goes to court and they go, no, you're having them in, it's not becoming an elitist club, I have to admit that it's looking more and more unlikely that, never mind Andretti, that we're even going to be getting an 11th team on the grid in any time soon.
Oh. I would probably say it's going to be a lot more aggressive than that. From what I have seen from Michael Andretti and Mario Andretti, they are not afraid to stir the pot. As in, when they were talking on Sky Sports just about like 3 months ago or something, they were just going, "Oh yeah, we got a factory going. We've got a model in the wind tunnel. We're doing all these things." And I'm just like, "Yeah, right. Okay, that very cute, Andretti. He's very cute." And then when you see this, you go, "They weren't kidding. They weren't kidding about this at all. They mean this. They know exactly what they need to do. They're using the Toyota wind tunnel, which has been proven to be good and useful. They have now got a base in Silverstone, right in the area of Oxfordshire in the Midlands, where the majority of Formula One staff operate, and that's why VCarb is relocating the majority of its car development to that region. It's 20 miles away from Silverstone, and you just feel like they're doing everything that they've been told probably, or have observed what they need to do. And now you get Otmar coming in going, yeah, I'd love to work for these guys. And he's going like, he gets it. Otmar is great when it comes to very lean, svelte operations that need organization. It's just if he has oversight from big people, that's where it kind of falls apart. But having him as a team principal just made me think, that's even better. This sounds like a brilliant operation, and it just feels like Formula One realized that this could throw a cat amongst the pigeons, and they've noticed that Andretti, the way they do things, and that they kind of just throw a bomb into social media and just like announce things in such a cavalier way, it goes against the grain of what Formula One does. They like to control the narrative, and this is just something that they are just slamming things down, and they're just going like, in their mind, they're probably just thinking, well, we're not rejecting them forever, just not right now, not in 2026 when everything's reset, and Andretti might pull a blinder, and then they might make us all look silly. Let's wait until 2028, yeah, when General Motors comes in, and then maybe we'll have had some time to develop, and they won't have developed, and they won't have the insight, and so that means they will be like, oh dear, they're P8 right now. So it's a case of just like, you get to come in when we say to them. But with Michael Andretti, no. This is going to go to court.
I think it's going to be tough. Look, Andretti can put in as much money as he wants. If F1 does not want an 11 team, then they can try what they want, but I don't see how they can get it done. I look, at the end of the day, it's painting a. I mean, my first reaction to the whole thing was, has F1 lost touch with its fan base? And I think the answer seems to be yes, because whatever Liberty is doing right now it's has anything that has happened in January, has any development made F1 fans feel good about anything? We've had one outrage after the other. Yeah, Lawrence, go ahead.
Madrid wasn't so bad. As in, I think it looks all right, and I've seen the Assetto Corsa mods of like doing it. It looks fun. I think, okay, let's put the 2026 car brain on and go like, this track could be good in those brand new cars. I would like to see that. And the transportation links, I think, are really sound. In fact, I think, heck, if it's 5 minutes from the airport, I'd probably just get on a plane and go there. I think, because it's so convenient. I can fly from Gatwick to Madrid. That's great. But you just feel like that's one
Lawrence,
good thing.
that is fine. The concern that I face as an F1 fan is, every street track, I find it very hard to distinguish one from the other.
Okay.
It's all, yeah, I mean, all of them have, you need basically a singular setup that will work in all of them. You need a great car that has great low downforce setup. It will work in Jeddah, it will work in Miami, it will work in, which one was it, Las Vegas. The thing is, there's no uniqueness to any of them, and somehow, if you pick up a modular circuit and place it in different parts of the world, it kind of kills the unique aspect of the sport that we had. So I mean, again, that is one development. My basic point was that overall, if you look at it, there's been outrage after outrage for one thing or the other, and somehow that does not paint a good picture. And actually worries me. It's a bad omen for 2024, because we've already had a single team domination in 23. We've had a complete, you can say, a streak of bad news in 2024 January. Who the hell knows? We reach we reach preseason testing, and Red Bull is again a second a lap faster, and the season's done. Too much of doomsday. Too much of doomsday stuff, isn't it?
I'm an optimist to a fault, but I try and find the good stuff in everything when I can. But I do see your point.
Yeah. Again, look, if until and unless it goes to the courts, I don't think there is any other way Andretti can actually make it to the F1 grid. And if it goes to the court, it leaves a bad taste in everyone's mouth. You have to wonder if Andretti will think it, if everything will be worth it or not. At some point in time, you have to understand if the juice is worth the squeeze, right? That is what it comes down to. Is it there? Who knows? Maybe just sell off Haas, just buy Haas, and you know, be more American and be actually interesting.
Yeah, what a sad state of affairs. I mean, I do weep for the future of this sport sometimes. I just think, why can't we just go back? Well, I would say 10 years, but 10 years now is 2014. Let's go back 15 years. That's a good starting point and see if we can keep things on the right track. But yeah, so okay, well, this episode ended up turning from just general discussion of the state of affairs to covering a breaking news story. So that went in a bit of a different direction. But yeah, I guess we just have to see how things unfold with this. But it's looking quite bleak at the moment, I'll be honest.
I know it does seem like it's a gut punch, but in a way I was not kind of surprised, but I don't feel like this is it. I feel like we got to wait for a response from Andretti themselves, and I don't think they will take this lying down because they've taken none of the stonewalling down. They won't take this lying down. They're not going to give up. They're going to come up with something, and the FIA will back them. This is Ben Sulayem's personal mission to undermine Formula One, and Andretti is the pawn in this game of chess because this is something that's going to happen. Andretti, you could easily say they're being used by the FIA, but the pawn is one of the most important pieces on the game on the game of chess because they can dictate where the battle goes. Sure, they can be taken, but they can easily dictate the pace of the competition. So you might get something that you might not expect.
Help me, Mohammed bin Sulayem. You're my only hope. Yeah.
I bet we didn't see that coming a few months ago when he was persona non grata at the FIA prize giving.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah.
who would have thought?
But that's
MBS
exactly
being
what- That's exactly what he wants. This is exactly a lot of the times. This is the strategy that Lewis did with Alonso in 2007 of being like, "Hey, I'm just the rookie. I'm just doing everything by the book. Don't mind me." MBS is now going, "Don't mind me. I'm just following the protocol. I'm doing exactly what F1 told me to do. Just follow the rules. Don't get my own narrative." That's what they're doing. They did the checks and balances. They did everything that we were supposed to do. That's what we did. So, balls in your court, Stefano. We are just doing what we said we would do to the letter.
Yeah, definitely not the end of this story. But it is the end of this episode. So thank you as ever to Nav, Law, Dan, and Casual F1 for joining us midway through. You've been listening to the DRS Train podcast. You can find us on YouTube and Spotify and or on Instagram and X at the DRS Train podcast. Make sure to join us for our next episode. Stay safe and we'll see you all next time.